have
This
control
conference
over it.
will now be recorded.
Okay, she's got that. Okay, good.
Can
Before we begin,
you hear
though,
me now?
oh, sure, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. And just before we begin the meeting, I'll make the statement, unless Chuck, did you want to make the statements about why we're meeting remotely?
Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, thank you. This is Attorney Mary Gaziano, Village Attorney. This is the September 28th, 2020 meeting of the Village Zoning Board. We are meeting remotely pursuant to the Governor's executive order, which allows remote meetings during this time of the coronavirus pandemic. And the village office is such that it isn't practical based on the space limitations for us to be able to open to the public for these types of meetings and maintain the appropriate social distancing. So that is why we are having this remote meeting. Also, it was properly posted, and there was notice given of how the public could either call in or link in to the meeting. Originally, Village President Frank Eubank was going to be part of this meeting, but he is unavailable. I bring that up because the rules also require, with the extension of the time for the public allowing the remote meetings, is that a member of the public body is to be at the village office during the meeting, even though the public isn't let inside. That's part of the ruling, and so we're not able to do that tonight. But anticipate that we certainly will be able to comply with that in the future. The other thing, just as a reminder, because of the nature of the remote meetings, one of the other new rules that Attorney Eubank Village President Eubank had indicated came from the governor is that every single vote must be by roll call. So with that, then we can start the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a roll call, Kelly?
Emmert,
Yes.
Koenig,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Medeiros,
I don't see him,
Nancy.
Kelly.
Vancico.
Yes. You've all received a copy of the August 24th minutes that Kelly composed, and Mary, I think you sent out another one tonight.
I just sent it with some proposed revisions.
Perhaps we could, I assume everybody else has read the ones that they received. Do you have any objections to that? If you don't, we'll have Mary tell us what she's changed on it.
You want me to go ahead, Chuck? I just got to find my copy here a second.
Please do.
Okay, I can tell you that mainly it was just in a couple of places. Here we go. Mr. McDougal's last name was spelled wrong in a couple of places, and so I changed that. And then also under the application for zoning change, it was just more of a grammatical flow where it said the Ackerman's Engineers Arc Design have sent new and modified documents and correcting the drainage study. I just changed that word to corrected. In item 2 on page 2, there just was a typographical error. It said unites instead of units. Also in item 4, there's about 7 lines down. Mr. Eubank commented that this is their initial plan. I just changed that to was. And in that same paragraph, I believe it was intended to be the word granary, Grainery, as opposed to granary, Granary. And I changed that. Then also on page 3, we were speaking about item number 5, Article 12.16, about the landscape plan. said in there that Mr. Van Sickle commented that previously Attorney Gaziano had suggested landscaping around the sign. If that's true, that's fine. I just don't remember that. And I listened to the audio today, but I wasn't looking for that. So I don't know if anybody else has an independent recollection of if I said that or if someone else said that. But that was a proposed one if what was listed is incorrect. And then in that same paragraph, I just added the article "the." Mr. Ackerman stated that the fence will be along south side. I just put the south side. And, oh, and then at the very end, when I was talking about, this is the third paragraph from the bottom, that the village board will then have, the way it read was the village board will then, to approve at another meeting, the zoning board will discuss the variances. I just put the village board will then have to first approve the change in zoning. At another meeting, the zoning board will discuss the variances. Because if you recall, we had discussed at the last meeting what order things would go in. And so those would be my proposed changes.
I don't know if you suggested anything on that landscaping. I do remember you had some discussion about it.
Okay, then let's leave it. I just didn't remember, honestly, and I didn't want to have something in there that was supposed to be attributed to somebody else. So that's
No,
fine.
I know there was some discussion. I can't recall what it was. There was so
Okay.
much.
Okay,
Does anyone else have any changes to the minutes? If not, I'd
No,
like to ask
I can recall.
for approval.
I'll move for approval of the minutes with the changes noted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, vote please.
Who was the second on that?
McDougall.
Google.
Okay. Emmert,
Yeah.
Tony,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes. Does anyone have a conflict of interest?
No.
Okay, we'll proceed then for the reason for tonight's meeting, and that's to discuss the conditions that we want to contain in the recommendation to the village board about rezoning. And again, Mary has sent a new list of those. I don't know if you can draw them up or not. I
didn't
think
know, I didn't know if
we've
you
had-
wanted, go ahead, sorry.
go ahead.
I just didn't know, because there's certain ones that have blanks, have always had blanks, so I didn't know if you were gonna discuss them individually or how you wanted to do it. And I can tell you, I listened to the last meeting again and viewed it and listened to it, and that there was some back and forth of where things were going to be included. So I just want to make sure whether we have to, go to them one by one to make sure that I do have them in the place that you wanted them.
Well, they look similar to what we discussed before. I don't know if we have to fill in the blanks or discard the blanks. So I would recommend we go down and go by one by one. And if there's anything else then we should add it.
Okay,
The first one concerning the fence, I think the first one is concerning it should be constructed and maintained along and parallel to the entire length of the southern lot line of the lot in question. I think that should be the entire width of the lot.
versus the entire length.
Well, the lot has a length and a width in my estimation, and this is the width of it.
But
Okay,
there's only one southern lot line.
Well, that's the next item.
So that's in the same sentence there. Is the entire length of the southern lot line of the lot in question.
It'd be less confusing if you said distance of the lot line rather.
Yeah, that's right, the southern lot line, that's right, you're right.
I have
So
no
are we-
problem if you want to put distance.
okay.
I
Distance,
don't think it's confusing the way it is.
Okay, that's fine, because you're talking about, the lot we're talking about. Okay, then the second item, it talks about the fence.
can I back up a
Construction-
second? Is it staying length or is it going to distance parentheses length or what?
Well, what Bill has said, we talked about the southern lot line, that's the length of the southern lot line.
Okay, I'll leave it.
And I was
If you want
thinking
to
that
change it,
the width
well,
of the
who
lot.
came up with distance? Was that you, Irv?
It was merely a suggestion. It's clear to me.
Okay, if it's clear for distance, I have no problem, that'd be okay with me too. That might be a better word, but
You could actually just eliminate the entire length and just say parallel to the southern lot line.
well,
Well,
it's got to be the entire length
but
and
it's-
distance of the lot.
that'd be the entire lot.
And you're
Well,
repeating it in
entirely.
the next, you're repeating it in the next item also, so.
We need to say the entire length though, so it's,
Okay, that's
Right.
fine. Fine with me. Why did my screen go away? There we go.
and then the next item too, the fence constructed and maintained along the southern lot line of the lot in question must be at least 6 foot in height, but not more than blank feet in height. I don't know if we need that, not more than blank feet in height. I think maybe we should say not at least 6 foot height, but adequate to do what we want it to do, which is to keep the light from being noted from the southern angle.
I think the reason we had that in there is because the fence ordinance in commercial, as I recall, lists 8 feet as the maximum. But the question was, did you want to go to that number or did you want something less?
I don't see a problem with just leaving it out. It shall be at least 6 feet in height. And then just delete, but no more than blank feet in height. And just have it read, shall be no more than 6 feet in height and made of imperious material, blah, blah, blah.
So you want it no more than 6 feet, is that right?
At least 6 feet,
It shall be at least.
Okay.
at least.
What if it's 15 feet?
Well, doesn't
Well,
the,
the other ordinances that the village has which would prohibit that.
I
Village
understand that.
ordinance is 6 feet, I believe.
Yeah, I think Frank had found something that showed it different for commercial,
Oh, okay.
but
I tried
maybe
to
we
find
can put at least 6 feet in height, but no more than the maximum allowed for business zoning.
That sounds good.
that's
That'd
fine.
be fine too.
And then,
Okay.
like Bill says, blah, 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 about, so the light cannot shine
Yep,
through. I don't know about this over 6 feet, must be must meet them wind codes. I don't know where that really comes from.
That Dick Maderis had told us that. That's in the Illinois Building Code that we
Is
have
that where-
adopted.
Is that where it's found in the building code?
That's what he told us.
Okay, if that's
That would
where
be
it's from, then I have no
anyway,
objection.
then.
I didn't know what he was citing.
I don't see that it hurts leaving it in. It just makes it more clear to the people. But if it's already a requirement by some statute or ordinance, it doesn't need to be in there. I don't see a
Correct.
problem leaving it in. It's just kind of just explains it a little bit more.
Yeah, the reason that some of those things, Bill, we like to leave in is because I don't know if you've ever looked at the Illinois Building Code, but it is almost impossible to figure out kind of what it says. And most people, see, we adopted the Illinois Building Code, which is this huge thick book. And it isn't like someone's going to go look on the village ordinance website and read a 5-page ordinance or 10-page ordinance. This book is like hundreds of pages.
Okay, I understand. I have never read it, so leave it in.
Okay. Next item is about light fixtures. Must be constructed and mounted such that the light emitted therefrom does not project to the side, but rather projects downward. Quite explanatory in its own.
Mhm.
Any light fixture must be mounted at a height at least 12 inches lower than the height of the fence constructed and maintained along the southern lot line of the lot line in question. And then a
The lot
position
is
to,
what?
Well,
pardon?
if we only
I
get,
think
if
you
the
just read
fence
it.
is only, sorry. If the fence is only 6 foot tall, that means these lights are gonna be 5 foot in height. Which seems to me like they'd be hit by vehicles going through there.
I can't understand whatever's being said.
I think,
Hey.
Mr. McDougal, Chuck, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
I think what Mr. McDougal was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I only caught parts of it too, but I think he's saying that if the fence is 6 feet in height and the light fixtures must be at least 12 inches lower than the height of the fence, and he's concerned about the lights from the cars shining there. Is that correct?
No, I'm
Well-
concerned about the light fixtures being too low. Whether they're going to be in the way of the right of ways now, if they're only the maximum height is gonna be 5 feet.
He's concerned about
Right.
whether the lights being too low.
Too
I
low
thought
for
the
what?
acronym said they'd be okay with the lights being at 5 feet, because that would still illuminate what they need to illuminate on the building so people could see to get into the door. And the light is gonna be lit so people will be able to see it as opposed to running into it with their head. So I prefer it to stay there the way it is, the way it's written.
Basically, the last decision I heard from Mr. Ackerman is that the lights that he's going to have for access to the building is going to be basically at chest high, right by the lock. So I think the way it is fine for me also.
And then that guarantees that if somebody else takes over and they want to put the light different from Mr. Ackerman, it's still lower than the fence. So that
Right.
protects the people to the south.
Right. There's no more discussion. I suggest leave it the way it is.
I agree.
And that's fine.
And just so it's clear, I know Mr. Van Sickle, when you were reading it, you added a phrase, which I thought was good. the light fixtures must be mounted at a height at least 12 inches. The way it originally read, it just said the light fixtures must be at least 12 inches lower, blah, blah, blah.
The
That's a
one
good
I'm
change, Mary.
reading from one that Bill sent after the last meeting, so he probably
Okay.
thought
And I was incorporating that language and I must have missed it. Oh yeah, I see, I did miss it.
it's easier for me to see here than on the screen.
Got it.
Okay, but I better pay attention. What's your screen saying that night? Okay, the next one, there should be not more than blank lights per building. Spread equally on both sides of the building with lights in the corners of the building, but not on the roof. Discussion is anywhere from 16 per building to a total of 21 to 26 for both buildings. I don't know. I don't remember discussion on the number of these. I don't have any reason not to say what's here, but I don't know how many lights there is for each building. It depends on, there's one on each unit, so.
We never determined, exactly where they were going to be, and that's why I just put, because it was true as I was looking at the various notes, based on some projections of what people thought it should be, it did vary from anywhere from 16 per building to then it was discussed maybe 21 to 26 for both buildings, which obviously would not be 16 per building.
Oh, if we've determined, or if we've restricted how high the lights are and that they can't shine outside of the area, why do we need to put a number on it, how many fixtures there are?
That's a good question, Herb. I have the same thought in my mind. Knowing the man that's going to build these, he's not going to put any more lights on there than he has to.
Right. In one of the earlier restrictions, you could add the part about not on a roof, but I don't know that this one is necessary.
Gotcha. I can add that to number 3. We do, first of all, do you care if they're spread equally on both sides of the building? And or do you care that there are lights on the corners of each building? Because that was discussed before at least. And I presume you care that there's none on the roof because of the illumination. But I can take whatever information of that you want to keep in and just add it to number 3.
Well, the last I knew from discussion with Ackerman is that he was going to put a light on each unit, but it would be right at chest level. And then probably one on each corner. I don't know why. I suppose to denote the corners there. But I don't know what the right number is for that blank.
Well, and if you don't, you can do it kind of back into it in the sense of, is the concern that he have a light on each unit? I know he said that's what he planned to do, but I guess I'm asking, is that what you want? Because we don't have to say the number of lights if you say, in essence, where you want them or where you don't want them.
His thought was to have one right where they have to put the key in so they see what they're doing.
Okay.
That's what I would think, each doorway.
And is that something you would all be in favor of, that you would want to require that it's on a light on each unit?
Well, if there's a light at a doorway, would that not illuminate a doorway to the side too? A second doorway. The only reason I would want to limit the number of lights is so it's just not a big glow coming from this lot. You know, if they have a whole lot of lights on at one time.
These are motion activated, you know.
Well, if we require that,
Right.
we haven't required that.
Well, that's what they're going to almost have to be because there's going to be no electricity in the buildings at all. These are only solar activated.
But we haven't required that. That's what this guy is going to do, but
I know.
it says he's going to do, but then if he sells it and somebody else wants to build it, we have to have it in the restrictions to be enforceable against the person he sells it to.
Next to the guy, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't like to have one on every unit glowing all night either. I think the interurban's back in business.
And do you want it such that the lights on the units are motion activated, but that I would think somewhere you want some lights that are always on for safety reasons when two.
They may,
Like a
That
light in
may be
each
what
corner
the
of the building.
it might be what he's talking about on the corners of the buildings.
Correct. Or something, just somewhere so someone isn't pulling in and it's just pitch black.
Yeah. Well, there is a big light on the corner there, that street light, but that's just an accessory thought. Does anybody remember how many units he is going to have? I don't at the moment.
Notes, anything.
Hey, I'm here. This is Jason.
Oh,
Okay,
Jason,
Jason.
you on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many lights do you think is in the complete situation if you have one on every unit?
I drew earlier because I got the email. I was going to put, but they'd be continuously lit. I didn't like motion lights because I thought that would bother people more, lighting up and turning off. And I thought that was discussed before, but
No.
I don't know.
No, there wasn't.
But anyway, I had constantly lit, one on each corner of each end, and then 5 on each side of each building, which would be 14 per building, or so your 16 would work fine. That evenly spaces them. I wanted it to look nice, you know.
How many
And
units
that,
are there on each side?
There are 100 feet long. There's 10 per side. So 5 would split it up 20 feet every other unit.
Okay.
The light would be between the doorways, right?
Yes, instead of on the locks. I know we had discussed that, but this will work.
How many lights in each building, on each building total?
14 is what I've got drawn up. So yeah. 14 per building. It's 28, not 20.
On each side?
What's that?
Is that 7 on each side then?
5 on each side and
Yeah.
4 on the corners is what I
Yeah,
heard.
the
Okay.
corner ones will be the ends, I thought, since they were going to be
Okay.
under fence height. The because there is units on the ends as well. Maybe that
Ah.
got forgotten.
Okay.
How high are these gonna be then, Jason?
Lock height, so 4 or 5 feet, right, under the 6-foot fence, whatever that
Okay.
is.
I
All
see.
right.
I'm more with Attorney Gaziano on, it just needs to be lit up for safety more than being able to see the locks now is more where I'm at. Because these particular lights are short, nobody would hit them with their cars, and they're only 8,000 lumens, so they're not very super bright. Just something
So
so
you're
people
saying-
could see.
14 per building and, so the 28 for both buildings.
Yes. We can make that work.
And none on the roof.
None on the roof.
None on the roof.
And they are going to be motion activated or they're not?
I
Not.
prefer not, but you guys decide. I don't care.
It would be dusk to dawn, correct?
Dusk to dawn is yes.
I like the idea of them not being motion activated because that would be more annoying. So we could put a restriction in that they not be motion activated.
Okay,
That is what you plan on doing, correct, Mr. Ackerman?
Yes. I'm with you. Yes, that the dusk to dawn non-motion.
Okay.
Everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
That's fine by me.
Okay, let's continue. Let's see, the next item here is, talking about landscaping. There are public utilities in the right of way on the Main Street side, which limits feasibility of landscape between the fence construct. Wait a minute.
yeah, it starts out since.
I don't understand the first time, Mary. It says that public utilities on the right of way on subject property on Main Street, comma, which limits the feasibility of landscaping between the fence constructed and maintained along the southern lot line.
Of the lot in question in the neighboring yard.
Yeah, but that
Oh,
public
that's not on
utilities
Main
on
Street.
Main Street should be period.
Okay, then we're
Well,
going to put, there are,
Why do the public utilities on Main Street limit the feasibility of landscaping on the south side?
That's what I'm saying. It should be on Main Street, period.
okay, so take out the since. There are public utilities in the right-of-way area of the subject property on Main Street.
Mary, before you go any further, can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh,
Now, the business district that this is going to be changed to would have landscaping requirements in and of itself, right, by ordinance?
correct.
Okay, then wouldn't this be more of a variance, that we are giving him a variance from having to landscape the south lot line because of where he's going to have to put his fence and where the sit-and fence already exists? There's no way he could landscape it.
I
So wouldn't this really
originally,
be a
and I
variance
originally
as
had
opposed to a restriction?
I originally had it in the variances section, but when I listened to the, and maybe it was inadvertent, but when I listened to the recording, at the end, there was some commentary, and I can't remember by who, that said, put it as a special use. So I certainly can change it back. Because that's where I had
Does
it.
it make more sense to you to be a variance as opposed to a restriction?
That was my initial thought, but like I said,
Okay,
because
and that's
there
what I'm
was,
thinking now too.
okay.
What's anybody else think?
I would agree.
Well, are we going to landscape the south side of the lot?
Well, we're going to give him a variance from the ordinance that would otherwise require him to landscape it, because there's not going to be any room to do it based where we're making him put a fence.
Well, the last I remember that he was gonna plant grass and maintain 3 foot between the fence and the lot line on the
Well,
south side.
I do adjust that there. If you read the last and I understand that the grammar is gonna be off based on how we're changing this, but it's basically saying that provided the area between the fence constructed and maintained along the southern lot line of the lot in question and the neighboring yard is sodded or seeded for grass, then no additional landscaping shall be required. And I think maybe that was the reasoning behind thinking it wasn't a total variance, that by at least some of the members, because you were making them put in grass. It was doing something.
That's not what I remember.
Okay, if you want to leave it as a restriction for that purpose, I can see where that makes sense.
The only thing I would say, Mary, is that the discussion on Main Street end of it should be that there's utilities there and that no landscaping is possible.
So
Maybe
so that would be changed to take out the sentence. There are public utilities in the right-of-way area of the, there are public utilities on Main Street
Uh-huh.
in the right-of-way area of the subject property. This limits the feasibility of landscaping between the fence constructed, or is that not true?
No, that's
No.
not true.
No?
That's true.
It's just saying that on Main Street, you can't have any landscaping.
You could limit the feasibility of landscaping, period. And then you
On Main
talk
Street.
about on Main Street, yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, which limits the feasibility of landscaping on Main Street.
Yeah.
Then on the southern edge, we're doing grass.
So maybe there needs to be a variance of the landscaping requirement on Main Street.
Okay, okay.
The restriction that on the south end, it has to be seeded or sodded.
Okay. Well, basically on the south end, the landscaping is gonna be, consist of seeding or sodding.
Is somebody else getting a lot of feedback?
Yes, it's terrible.
Terrible. And a lot of times that's coming from a phone connection.
Am I the only one on by phone?
No, I'm on by phone. Yeah, is everybody in agreement now? On the
Yes.
landscape?
I think
So
so.
one
Good.
part's gonna go in the variance, that is the fact that no landscaping is gonna be required on Main Street, and then that's in the variance portion. And then what's going to be required on the southern lot line is the grass or the seeding. That's gonna be under the special use.
Right.
That's fine.
Okay.
Just so you know, Bill, you're fading out really bad.
Okay. I don't know what to do.
Can you call back in? Sometimes that helps.
Okay, I'll try.
Well, it wasn't him.
Wasn't him. Well, now it's gone. Whoop.
No, I still hear it. How about if you're not speaking, can you mute your microphone? Try that. Okay, I think it might have been Mr. McDougal's because he's muted now. And I don't have the sound anymore. I don't know if you do.
I'm perfectly clear.
I agree.
Okay.
So is Bill back on?
Not yet.
So you're clear on the landscape, Mary?
I am clear on the landscape. I got it now, finally. Now it makes perfect sense because there would have been two portions to the landscaping on Main and the landscaping on the southern lot line.
Right.
Maybe Bill just decided to go away.
Where'd he go?
Let's get a better offer.
Must have.
Number 7 shouldn't be any concern, should it? That's a,
Number 7 shouldn't be there. It's a requirement from the
fire department.
fire department, so that shouldn't even be in there.
I'm sorry, what, number 7?
Number 7. That's in the building code, Mary. The
Okay,
fire code.
so that's not a special condition, that's just an always condition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 8 is correct. It has to be followed to the UDO, and drainage has been addressed, and it's not a requirement. They're meeting whatever the requirement is, except we have to add one new inlet.
Okay, I'm back.
Ah, good.
I've got a different phone.
And Bill, it wasn't you. At least for the process of elimination, I think it was Mr. McDougal's. Because when you left, the noise was still there and background noise. And then when he muted, it went away. That was an issue the last time, as I recall, as well. So I don't know, maybe it's based on his location. But just one thing, Bill, I don't think you were here for this. For number 7, it was just mentioned, I believe, by Mr. Vansickle and Mr. Koenig that it doesn't need to be in there because it just is it's a requirement. It's a fire requirement.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's nothing special.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry, Chuck. Now I guess we're back on number 8.
Well, I think number 8 is a good statement. It has to meet that, and it does. The only thing we're going to have to meet it, they have to put in a new stormwater inlet on Swift Street, which should maybe be another item. I don't know.
Swift Street. Census. So when it says and stormwater drainage must be addressed, to include but not be limited to the installation of a new stormwater inlet on Swift Street?
Well, that's how they're addressing it, yes.
Okay,
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
That's
At least
okay.
Our engineer is. Number 9, a one-way traffic pattern must be maintained on the subject site such that traffic shall enter the site from Swift Street, travel north, exit on Main Street to protect the neighboring property from undue interference with the peaceable enjoyment of their property from headlights. The Ackermans would place appropriate signage and pavement markings on the property meeting all size and structural requirements of the Illinois Vehicle Code, and to the extent enforceable, would enter an agreement with the village to allow enforcement of the traffic laws on its private property, and incorporates this notification languages into all leases signed with storage unit facility tenants.
Okay,
I
I
like that.
suggest that we take the Ackermans out because this is just with respect to a special use for that property by whoever owns it, and just say
Owners, property owners.
appropriate
Property owner?
signage shall be placed.
okay.
I didn't hear that. What was it?
Go ahead, Mary.
That rather than referencing the Ackermans, and that's a very good point, because it's for the property, not just them.
Yes?
The appropriate signage, I think maybe we should say the property owner, but either the property owner shall place appropriate signage and pavement markings, or the appropriate signage and pavement markings shall be placed on the property meeting all size and structural requirements, blah, blah, blah.
I agree with that. I just take out the "the." Just start with appropriate signage and pavement markings shall be placed.
But by who?
Okay. That's why you wanted owner. Okay.
Right, I just don't want it to think that somehow, they're gonna be, that's gonna be done, but the village is gonna do it.
Okay. Good point.
So the property owner shall place appropriate signage and pavement markings on the property, meeting all size and structural requirements, so on and so forth.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I agree with that.
Okay?
Yeah.
And before we leave this one, Mary, I remember reading something from you where you state that I stated the county has in the past entered into agreements to enforce traffic regulations, which we have done. We've done it at the malls, and we also did it at Clock Tower years ago.
Okay,
But
okay,
there is specific authority for the county to enter into such agreements to enforce those traffic laws on those two things. My question to you is there something in the municipal code which allows municipalities to do a similar thing? I don't know. I do believe from my past experience that municipalities do seem to have more powers than what counties do. So there might be something that allows a municipality to do that. But I just wanted to point out that there is specific authority for the county doing it.
yeah, and that's why what I had indicated in the email is that I honestly wasn't positive. So for purposes of the discussion tonight, I put the language the way it was. And then
Okay.
I'm going to further get the answer, and then by the time we're actually doing this, we can change that accordingly if it's not an issue, because I know you had the issue that we don't want to put something in there if we can't enforce it.
Correct.
Frank
Okay.
says we have this agreement now with the school and with the apartments on Cunningham.
Yeah, but that was, first of all, with the school, there is specific statutory authority to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the schools for that. I was incorrect when I stated about Clayton Court. What I was remembering is not, basically, we didn't have a written agreement. What we had was, we were contacted by Clayton Court's attorney, and they were giving us permission. They were complaining about a car that had been there for a long time, and they wanted it towed off the property. And they gave us, had a written agreement basically saying we could come, we, the village, could come on the property, their private property, and get that vehicle without having to go through the whole warrant and all that sort of thing. So that was my fault. I was incorrect in what I was remembering, our thing with Clayton Court. That's not to say
Okay.
we can't do it, but that's just what I have to further investigate.
Oh, good, good. Well, these meet the list that I had also. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add to the conditions?
Mary, there was some in the minutes, I was talking about topography. Is there something that the Ackermans gave us that they're going to have to raise the level of the land to make this work?
I saw what you had about in the minutes, because I listened, like I said, again to the meeting, and you did mention topography. I'm not aware of anything that they've given us. Mr. Ackerman, do you have anything you can provide or give us some insight?
Other than what the engineer gave to your engineer, no, I have nothing, but it doesn't, the lot does not raise at all. I know that. It just gets swaled towards the two existing and water entrances and the third new one.
Okay.
There'll be a ditch or a waterway down through the gravel where it is now. Basically, nothing changes on the lot other than swaling towards those two ditches.
Okay, so we're not raising the land to raise the buildings significantly at all. Okay.
No, we'll be digging down to put the rock in and then the concrete on top of that. Yeah. The buildings should end up about where they are on top of what's already there.
Okay.
The concrete.
Right.
That's how I understood it when I talked to Ark.
Okay. I don't have any other conditions then that I can think of.
Well, Mary, I think probably we're in a position that we should have a motion to recommend to the village board the appropriate zoning with these conditions.
What about, are you going to address the variances on the next page separately? I understand that that's a decision of the zoning board, not the board. But are you going to deal with the first part and then go to the variances?
That's what I thought.
Okay, that makes sense, because that's an action of just this board.
Right. So who
Mr. Van
wants to-
Sickle, you need a motion?
Who wants to construct this motion?
Well, I
what's
think
the present? Right now, it's presently zoned as District 2.
Yeah, well, we want to have a motion to recommend that.
That we change the zoning from District 2 to, was it general
District
business? What is that? Is that District 3?
Special
3.
use permit in District Number 3, general business.
Well, we got to change it to general business, and then with
the special-
restrictions for the special use.
that's correct. That it would be a motion to recommend the change in zoning from District 2 which is two-family, to District 3 general business with a special use permit for a storage facility with conditions.
That's right.
Subject to the following
Right,
conditions or restrictions.
right.
I like the way Mary worded it. If you've got it written down, Mary,
I do. Subject
Okay.
to be subject to the conditions and restrictions that are listed as going to be listed as Exhibit A to the minutes.
okay.
Mr.
gotta be
Emmert,
clear.
are you-
It's got to be clear that we're not doing it to a district number 3. We're doing it to a district number 3 for a specific use.
Right, to District 3, conditioned on a special use permit. And we've had those before with other ones, and it reads that way to say, with a special use permit or whatever,
fact, this-
so it's tied together.
So
fact,
that
Mr.
is
Ackerman-
permissible, Mary, to change it only for this special use, and if it's not used for that special use, it reverts back?
Yeah, we can use language. I'm just looking for the last one that I had done. But I get what I know what you're looking for.
Mr. Ackerman's other property is on this special use permit also.
It is?
And general business, special use permit, yes.
Really? All right. Okay.
So it might be a special use in the business, but can we change the zoning from two-family to business only for this purpose? And if it's not used for this purpose, it reverts back to its prior zoning, which would be two-family. That's the thing legally I'm not sure of, that I'm asking Mary.
Yeah, as I'm remembering from and I'll double check, but because we haven't done this one in a while, but when we did, this was in, where this was at, Prairie Hill. This was back in 2004, that we had done a zoning map amendment with a special use permit for townhouses. And it was townhouses only under planned residential development. So as I recall, it was all conditioned, but I will clarify.
Okay.
I know that is the intent, to have it conditioned.
Okay, then do we need that to be one of the conditions, that we are changing the zoning from District 2 to, tell me if I'm right, general business, is that 3?
Yes,
3.
Okay, so we're changing the zoning from District 2 to District 3, conditioned upon, 1, the owner construct if any buildings are placed on the property, it shall be limited to storage units. And then the rest of the conditions we had.
okay,
Because we'd almost need that as being a condition to make it enforceable, that it's changing to 3, conditioned upon 1, this is the way you use it.
right.
Because there's other things that we could change zoning on, and we give them a special use under that zoning, but they then keep their underlying new zoning. And if our intention isn't for them to keep their underlying new zoning, then that has to be a condition, I would think, that they use it for storage. They use it for building storage units.
Got
If they are going
Okay.
to use it for, if they're going to put any buildings on it, it has to be storage building units. Because I suppose they could still just keep that new zoning and have it vacant. But if a building is built, a structure is built upon it, it has to be storage units, and then the rest of the conditions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that we don't have the situation that we had where, in essence, the church went up. They
Right.
wanted it got changed, so it was single-family residential, which would allow for a church. They ran out of money for the church. We ended up with a subdivision.
Because you'd already changed the zoning. So
Correct.
if
Correct.
we can do it that way, then that has to be a condition, I believe.
Got it. I will double check.
So any, condition upon, the first condition would be any structure, if a structure is placed on this building or on this property, it must be a storage unit structure, or give me
Right.
better wording, but that's what I'm
But
trying
yeah,
to say.
that the only structures allowed on the property would be storage units.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Mr. Ackerman? 'Cause that's what you're intending on doing.
Yes, that is correct.
So you'd be okay with that condition, right?
Yes, I would.
Okay. The only way that really hurts you is if you were to try to sell it to somebody and they wanted to use it for another business purpose, they wouldn't have the business zoning.
Sure. Yep,
Okay.
I understand.
So, yeah. So I think that needs to be our first, again, it needs to be our first condition, Mary, then the rest of them, as we already previously talked about.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody else?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Mr. Emmert, have you made that motion? Are you making that motion?
Sure.
And I
Is there
will
a second?
second. I will second it.
All right. You're all clear on it, Mary?
I got it.
We have a roll call for the vote.
Okay.
Mr. McDougal, do you think you can mute yourself? Because we're getting feedback. There we go.
Still muted.
There he is. Okay, Kelly, you ready?
Yes. Emmert,
Yes.
Koenig,
Yes.
McDougal,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes. Okay. Mary, you have a chance to prepare this so Frank could take it to the village board next meeting?
Just so you
Not
know,
the
Go ahead.
ordinance. but your
the,
vote.
well, just tell me what you're anticipating he would do for the next meeting, or what is he bringing to the next meeting? Because for the change in zoning itself, which would be a map amendment, we have to have a public hearing, not less than 15 nor more than 30 days prior to the vote. Because this would involve a zoning map amendment. So the answer to,
Didn't we already have a public hearing on it?
did we on the zoning map amendment for this? I
thought we did.
We
Okay.
started.
then I must be dreaming. Okay,
It's always been that we give the village or the village board our recommendations, and then they agree with everything that we've said, and then you make the ordinance out from that.
okay. Sorry, I must have been having a brain drain.
Well, Mary, I think that we had a meeting and Chuck went and talked to the citizens ahead of time. There was nobody that showed up, so, but my recollection was it was technically scheduled for a hearing, and Chuck had relayed what the citizens had told him. Is that
Okay.
correct, Chuck?
Exactly. Exactly.
And so
Okay.
I thought that months ago we did technically have a public hearing, but it was all by Zoom also, so.
They basically declined to come to the meeting, so I talked to them. I've talked to them 3 times about what's transpired and what we've done and our goals and Mr. Ackerman's goals.
Okay, Mary, I guess it comes down to, did you or the village publish anything?
Yeah, we published it.
Oh, yeah, we would have definitely published.
Well, we go back, if we can find that we published, then we know we had the hearing.
Yeah.
If we didn't, then we didn't have a hearing, or at least we didn't have a proper hearing. So who does do you?
Yeah,
Prepare-
I just looked back in my record. I handle all of that.
Okay, so we did have the public hearing.
As-
We had a
now-
public hearing.
I want to make sure Mary agrees.
Yes, that I believe, I just honestly wasn't remembering, but now that Chuck says that, and I didn't bring that part of the file with me, but
Okay,
I will confirm it, but that's typically what we do. We have the public hearing at this level, at those zoning board level to kind of get it out of the way, but for whatever reason, I just wasn't remembering it.
okay. Well, I would ask you check it out,
Yep, I'll
and
confirm it.
if it's okay, process it through. If for some reason we did not technically have a hearing, then we need to regroup and have one.
Right, but I think, I'm 99% sure Chuck is right.
Okay. I think he is too, but I just want to make sure we're not skipping a step.
Yep.
Okay,
And I'll put it in the email to all of you that have confirmed that along with the changes, because these I gotta make before I forget. So that we've got the language to go on to the next step. So yes,
Good.
presuming all that's been done, then this will be ready to go to Frank so he can get it to the village board for this upcoming board meeting.
Sounds good. Now, what do we have to do for these variances? Do we have to have a hearing on those?
No, as I recall, the way that the zoning book reads, or the zoning code reads, is just, that's the one power that the zoning board has, and that's to give a variance. But maybe, and I'll double check as you're starting to discuss them.
so we'll still have to have a meeting to discuss and create the variances. And to establish the record, we'll need to establish for a variance to be valid.
Right, but what I was talking about is just the language here is, assuming those are the variances that you're looking for. Because in the variances section, it's one of the powers and duties of the zoning board to vary or adapt the strict application of any requirements of this ordinance, meaning the zoning ordinance, provided no variance in the strict application of any provision of this ordinance shall be granted unless it finds, and then there's four findings that you have to come up
Right.
with. And then when you grant the variance, you shall prescribe any conditions that you deem necessary or desirable. That, for example, the variance shall be used only for those purposes as stated in the variance. And two, that the variance shall be used within 1 year from the date the variance was granted. And that in the event that variance isn't used within that time, then the variance would become null and void.
But we have to do that at a subsequent meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We just want to make sure we were trying to get down what variances we're looking at.
Right, okay.
And of course, those variances wouldn't happen until we talked about before that the village board decided to go along with the change in the zoning, provided that there's a special use permit as we described.
Okay.
So if the village board does the job at our next meeting, we could take care of this.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, as far as the variance you got written here, I think exactly what we have to do, using the recycled asphalt and eliminate the requirement for parking stalls.
And how many storage units are there again, Mr. Ackerman?
64.
64, okay. That just is the blank in number 2. And then what you don't see there, but we discussed, is what I would be taking from the prior page, that there'd be a variance of the requirement of landscaping on Main Street, since there are public utilities in the right of way.
There'll be 3 variances.
Correct.
And then I guess the next meeting, Chuck, I'm going to ask why we need to have a variance to go to the milled blacktop.
I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't catch that. Why would you need a variance to do what?
To go to the milled blacktop.
Oh, gotcha.
Because we're going to have to meet the 4 requirements, so, but we can talk about that when we get there.
Well, I think it's because the village requires parking or access to parking to be either concrete or blacktop.
And so is there something about this site which makes concrete or blacktop not feasible?
It's feasible, but we've been through this at a couple other meetings, that one of the reasons that the milled asphalt is an advantage is that it will let the water through instead of running off like blacktop or concrete, so we don't get as much stormwater drainage from it, which is an advantage to where this is located.
Okay, so you're going to be able to come up with something specific to this property, because there's the 4 requirements and the variances that we have to meet.
Well, I've looked at that today. I don't know how we're going to meet them on a lot of these, but it's also was recommended or agreed to by our engineer and by Chad Insco. Also, they're quite hot on this. They like it. It does a good job, and it's a lot less expensive to maintain.
Then maybe that's something the village should just change their ordinance and allow it, as opposed to requiring blacktop or concrete.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't want to get involved in that. They have enough to do with zoning.
Well, and I just think what Mr. Emmert's so addressing is that with the variances, that's by statute that we have to meet those requirements or you can't grant the variance, that it has to be how is it particular to this land, that there are special circumstances that apply to that land that don't, generally apply, that sort of thing.
How are you gonna meet it for the parking stalls?
I don't know, I guess that's what you got, that has to be thought about, but I'm just saying that.
And I guess
these are
I
the
might be
requirements.
arguing that it's going from 2-family to business only for this purpose. And this purpose, there is no office space where the public would need to come and park. It's going to be tough, but we might be able to come up with something, Chuck. I don't know.
I don't think we can do it.
I was more worried about the other.
Yeah.
Because it's not going
Okay.
to, this is not a general business like any other general business. This is a business just for this particular purpose. Otherwise, it reverts back.
Yeah.
So we are looking at this particular purpose as opposed to business in general.
Well, let's
As long as we can do that, which Mary feels we can, I think that we should be able to come up with something to make a record.
Okay. So, is there anything else tonight, folks?
Excuse me.
If not, let's have a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
A second.
roll call.
Sorry. Emmert,
Yes.
Koning,
Yes.
McDougall,
Yes.
Van Sickle,
Yes. Thank you. Mary, you got a
Okay.
minute?
Do I have a
Bye.
minute? Sure, I'll stay on.
Okay. I talked to you about this garage that's in a two-family that's a non-conforming use
Okay,
that's being used. And I had our conformance officer check into it. He hung a tag on their doorknob, but I see they're still operating. I'm gonna try and get some more information on it. But again, the ordinance says, and I'm sure you told me that what I believe in is that the only use they could make of that building is the occupant of the house could use it to work on his own automobiles. Is that right?
yep,
Okay. Well, I may have him call you so he's clear before he goes further, but I don't know what he's done since then, but it's been about 6 weeks and I don't see any movement there, and we did have a written complaint about it, so we got to pursue it.
okay. This is obviously Casper you're talking about, right?